Yo everyone, today I'm going to teach you how I used to perfect my pit stop window in F1 sim racing using F1 2025 to illustrate my examples. So a pit stop window, I would define it as the in-lap, the pit stop itself and the out-lap as well. All have unique traits that you need to maximize along the way. So the video format today will just be me showing my in-lap, talking about the areas I'll try to maximize, the pit stop itself, and also the out lap and how I'll try to maximize that for the maximum performance advantage as well. So with that being said, let's get straight into the heart of the video. So here we are on the in-lap here at Zandvoort. The reason I picked Zandvoort for today's video is the pit entry and exit is one of the most difficult on the whole F1 calendar. I'm going to be pausing the video periodically during this lap as well, just so I can go into detail about exactly the thought processes I have and exactly what I'm trying to do. So with that being said, let's pause the video so I can just go into detail and fully focus on explaining the processes that I do. So with that being said, the first step of mastering the in-lap here with your pit stop window is understanding the objective and what you want to get out of it. For example, if you want to try and overcut someone, then you understand the objective and you work with the steps to try and maximize the possibility of that goal target actually coming into a reality. If you want to get closer to someone so you could possibly undercut them on the following lap, then again, that's another situation that you can understand the steps necessary to work closer towards your goal and target. It's true in racing and it's also true in life. If you have a plan of action and you understand the target that you want to achieve, you can start formatting a plan to try and maximize the likelihood of that coming into actually fruition and coming into reality. So with that being said, as soon as you enter the in-lap, be thinking on what you actually want to achieve from that situation and understand what you need to be doing with the crucial steps to make it happen. The second step that I actually see people doing, to be honest, I used to do a lot as well, is I would over push and overdrive on the in-lap as well. Again, we're going to make another pause right here. So when I used to think about an in-lap, I used to think of, all right, Lewis, it's hammer time. And you would just be pushing absolutely flat out. To be honest, in real Formula 1, they have to do a lot of tyre saving. So a lot of the stint, they actually spend underneath the limit of the tyre, trying to save it, trying to manage the race as well. To be honest, in the F1 game, there's a little bit of tyre management, but it's really not to the same level as they do in real Formula 1. So to be honest, normally in the F1 game, you should just be pushing as hard as you can get out of the tyres and maximizing the lap time possibility and capability throughout the stint. The reason that's really important is as you come onto the in-lap, I used to think anyway, right, it's my in-lap, I'm going to push harder and go faster than I've ever done in this stint so far. In reality, that doesn't actually work because I was already pushing at 100% of my pace capability and the car and tire capability as well. So how can I go faster than 100%? Well, you can't. You just start overdriving in the situation. And I used to do that so much that I would think, right, it's my in-lap. I'm going to maximize even more out of the car. And I'll just end up making mistakes and going wide and just oversliding and, destroying the lap time capability. So in summary of that point, don't over push on the in-lap. More than likely, before the in-lap, you was already achieving the lap time potential you could achieve in the situation and the race circumstances that you was in anyway. Don't over push, don't overthink it, just try to maximize it. And yeah, you're going to just make a better lap time potential by driving how you used to in the previous laps rather than trying to change it spontaneously for the in-lap. The second and, well, I should say third segment of this in-lap as well is understanding the battery usage that you have. Of course, if you're trying to overcut someone, drain that battery, try to maximize the lap time potential. But if you don't have a risk and you don't have really something to be gaining, make sure that battery is as high as possible before coming in to the pit stop. There's a really critical factor as well with this. When you're coming into that pit lane, you're of course going to regenerate some battery because you're hitting the brakes, you're slowing the car down going into the pit lane. A pit lane, you might regenerate about 10% of battery usage. So, with that being said, there's no point having 100% battery before the braking zone because you're wasting 10% of the battery regen potential. What you really want to achieve is about 90 to 85% on the battery percentage before hitting the brakes. So then when you brake, it's going to regenerate a bit of the battery as well. Where you want to be using that 10 to 15% is actually right now. So you're going to see we're using the overtake button down to 85%, coming into the pit lane. There's a bit of a shorter braking zone here in Zandvoort, but as you can see, slowing the car down, we was able to get back up to 90%. So I guess that would have been around 7% it was able to regenerate in that phase of the braking. Just keep that in mind. And if you're able to practice ahead of time, understand how much battery regen you do get from the pit lane entry. Some tracks will be more, some tracks will be less. For example, this is one of the shorter pit lane entries, so you get less regen of the braking because, of course, you're spending less time in the brake pedal. But a longer pit lane entry, or longer braking zone in the pit lane entry, I should say, then you're going to get more regen from the brake pedal and the braking system, what means you get more battery percentage as well. So just think about those really nuanced details on how you could be maximizing it. And if you know that you're going to regenerate 10% of the battery by hitting the brake pedal into the pit lane, then make sure that you have like 88, 89% on the battery before, and use up that overtake button on the exit of the previous corner to maximize your top speed potential before going into the pit lane. Don't dilly-dally about, just sort of get on with it, maximize the pace of performance. Don't be all like daisical about it and just losing lap time potential. Get on it and absolutely maximize the performance. Now, pit lane exit, absolutely critical. Spam that pit lane exit button and get it off. Maximize the speed into the race. And people often spend the pit lane exit here, to be honest, being slow. They end up in a situation, they take it too cautious, they don't think about pushing it, they're just too safe in that situation, whereas actually you could get out of the pit lane. You saw in that situation, sure, I had a little bit too much wheel spin, and to be honest, I exaggerated a little bit with the wheel spin. In F1 Sim Racing, I would have had less throttle to maximize the traction capability, but you saw I was spamming the pit lane limiter button, so as soon as we got to the line and the game automatically detected that we were no longer in the pit lane, bang, the button was off and we was accelerating out again. So that's another thing. The game will automatically detect when you're out of the pit lane, so you can spam that pit limiter button, and as soon as the game detects it, it will release it for you and you're ready to go. And as soon as that pit lane limiter button is off, just absolutely smash the potential of the tires and get through that pit lane exit as fast as possible. It's a race. Maximize it and try to get the peak lap time potential out of it as well. So now we're here on the pit lane exit. The first thing you need to start thinking about and understanding is probably the car is going to be slightly more understeery than your normal balance of the car. The reason I say it's slightly more understeery is when you come out of the pit lane, let's go into the cockpit camera actually. So let me just bring my keyboard up here so then we can go into cockpit camera. As you're going to see, wrong button. As you're going to see in cockpit camera, let me just turn that off as well. The tires are at 71 and 70 degrees on the rear, of course 71 on the front. The reason that's really important is, one, the tires are slightly under the operating window, but two, in a normal circumstance, your rear tires are operating at a higher temperature than the front tires. What naturally means you're going to have a little bit more rotation because the rear tires generally will overheat compared to the fronts. What of course means that it's going to mean a bit more oversteer and rotation during the corner. On your outlap from the pit lane, the rear tires don't really have enough time to start overheating. So you're going to end up with a situation that the rear tires have more grip than they normally would do, leading to slightly more understeer, even to a very small degree. So just keep that in mind, that on your outlap, you will have a slightly more understeery car than you will have for the remainder of the stint once the rear tires have the opportunity to start overheating as well. That's just a really small detail. Also for setup development, don't get misled by a car balance in the first 3 laps of the stint. Leave it at least 3 laps before you start thinking about setup development and what you want to do next. Quite simply because in the first 3 laps of the stint, the tyres are still coming up to temperature and they'll be shifting the balance of what they have depending on that temperature as well. Leave it 3 laps and then you'll get a more true and reflective balance of the car. So now, pit lane exit, straight away pushing the car and understanding the tires are a bit cold, so you can see the car is just sort of sliding around a little bit as well and pushing on during the corner because you don't have the core tire temperature to be maximizing the grip as well. Now, going into the high-speed corner, this is where you're going to get a lot of tire temperature as well, but also a lot of understeer if you're not careful. Going into the next right-hander, you see going in, the car is just understeering a little bit, and this is a key indication of too cold tires. So, going into the high-speed right-hander, well, the second one, because this one is not easily flat out. As you're going to see, we're going to turn into the corner and the front reacts quite well. The reason for that is the tire surface temperature comes up very quickly and will give you pretty much instantaneous grip. But the carcass of the tire is not fully up to temperature right now, so it's not going to give you the prolonged grip during the corner. So for this reason, you have a good entry grip, but as soon as it actually goes to middle to exit of the corner, then it's more about the carcass tire temperature, and it's going to generate understeer from that point onwards, or a lack of grip in that situation. So as you're going to see, we turn into the corner pretty successfully, but then we start getting understeer as the corner goes on, quite simply because the transition and the importance of the grip goes from the surface temperature, and that's the initial turn in, to always the carcass temperature is middle to exit of the corner in this circumstance. So that's why the car started to understeer, and really you have to be thinking, imagining, and understanding why the car is doing a certain thing and how you can predict it and react to it as well. Of course, I'm lucky, I'm fortunate, because I've got a lot of experience playing the F1 games and how tires interact and how tires come up to the operating window, so I'm able to predict it and understand it and not have my confidence damaged from it. And the reason I say confidence damage is if I didn't know what the tire was doing in the situation, I would assume that the tire is going to stay very, very understeery for the rest of the stint, and I might start changing my setup because of this. But in reality, I know it's just that the tire is coming up to its operating window, and I just need to allow it a bit of time to do that in the best way possible. So yeah, understand that if the car starts losing grip in the middle of the corner, it's more to do with the carcass temperature rather than a setup imbalance. And as you're just going to see, pushing on with the tires, and as we get hotter and hotter tires, that imperfection of the grip in the middle of the corner gets less and less and less, and we're coming up. I'm going to show you in the cockpit camera. Actually, no, that's not too defined. I have a better idea. Why don't I just show you with the in-game designed HUD? That's a much better idea, Brendon. Why didn't you think of that first? Anyway, getting straight back into the action. On the right-hand side, of course, we exited the pit lane with 70 degrees on the rear tyres. Coming to the end of the lap, the rear left is coming up to 89, 90 degrees right now, whereas the front left tyre is only at 85. So that's exactly what I was talking about. As we go throughout the lap and as we go throughout the stint, the rear tyres are going to get hotter than the front tyres, and this is going to lead to a more oversteery car balance as the rear tyres are overheating while the front tyres are not. Now showing the difference in grip and how the car is reacting on the second lap comparing to the original out lap through these corners as well. You can see the front is still understeering a little bit, but it's much better than the previous lap, and as you can see, the grip is a lot more consistent through the right hander as well. Another detail that you can see just looking at the replay and comparing the car from this lap to the previous lap, on the first fast right-hander, it's easily flat out. It's not the best reference, to be honest, although you can see some nuanced details. But here, you're going to see we're going to turn the car in, and it actually just has a lot more grip overall. And you're just going to see that the car is much more predictable with the car balance as well. So just keep that in mind. You know, when the tires are cold, they react differently compared to when they're hot. So the final thing we're going to speak about in this video is how quickly that surface temperature builds up in high-speed corners. Look to the bottom right-hand side of the screen and look how quickly it just overheats. And this is exactly what I'm speaking about on the outlap. And we've been onto the grass, but that's all part of the example. Anyway, getting back to the full point of it, you just see how quickly that surface temperature builds up and overheats, leading to a situation that we just lose the grip. And that's why on the outlap, the surface temperature will build up very quickly and you'll get a lot of turn-in, because the turn-in is a lot about the surface temperature of the tire on the outlap. And then the middle to exit corner grip is more about the carcass temperature as well. And when the carcass temperature is just too cold, the tire will not be giving you the grip that you expect and demand of it. So just keep that in mind, and that's a little bit to teach you about the feeling of the car and how it can be reacting with certain situations to maximize your potential of the in-lap, the pit stop, and the out-lap as well. So with that being said, if you do have any questions, be more than happy to try and help out in the comments and do my best, and maybe also make a video about it. So if you do have any requests for me to make a video about a certain tutorial, I'll be more than happy to try my best to make it for you. With that being said, I've been Brendon Leigh. To summarize this video, on the in-lap, don't over push. You probably were driving at the limit previously anyway, and trying to push harder will just mean that you're going to make mistakes. On the pit lane entry, calculate how much battery you're going to save in that braking zone and make sure that you use the equivalent amount on the exit of the corner to basically just ensure you're maximizing the usage of the battery. Max Verstappen's out of his home GP. That's a bit crazy. Anyway, back to the point. On the outlap then, just make sure that you allow yourself basically the mental capacity to understand how the tires are coming up into their temperature window, and to not over push them and not to overreact to a tire that's giving an imperfect car handling characteristic because the tires are not in their operating window. So with that being said, I've been Brendon Leigh, and I'll catch you in the next video. Grazie ragazzi, ciao ciao, bye bye.